A lone traveler had wandered far from the busy routes of the stars. His small ship had broken down on the edge of a forgotten world. The sky above was filled with thick clouds, and the ground was covered in green mist that curled around ancient trees. He was only one man, with little food and less hope, but he carried a calmness in his steps as he looked for help. His boots pressed into soft soil as he walked through the strange market set up near the landing fields. Alien merchants looked at him with uneasy eyes. They whispered to one another, their voices sharp and filled with fear. The traveler noticed that the air felt different here. It was not just the scent of damp leaves or the heavy fog that clung to his clothes. It was the weight of something unseen, something powerful. The merchants looked at him as if he should not be here. He caught parts of their whispers. They said a beast lived on this world. A beast no one dared to face. They said it hunted in silence, moved like a shadow, and killed without warning. The words were always the same. No one survived when the beast appeared. The human's eyes moved past them, toward the dark edge of the forest that grew behind the market. Something shifted in the fog, large and heavy, but strangely graceful. The merchants backed away, hiding behind their stalls. Some closed their shutters, while others simply fled into the safety of their ships. Their fear was so strong that the traveler could feel it pressing against his skin. Yet, instead of turning away, he stood still. Then, out of the mist, the shape grew clearer. A massive predator stepped forward, its paws soundless on the earth. Its fur gleamed like silver under the dim light, and its eyes glowed with a cold green fire. The merchants whispered the name they gave it, a name passed in fear across the galaxy. It was said to be the deadliest predator alive, a creature that had ended whole expeditions, a monster that rulers had tried and failed to capture. Now, it stood only a few steps from the lone human. The predator's muscles moved beneath its skin, silent but full of strength. Its head lowered slightly, and its glowing eyes locked on him. A single growl rolled out from its throat, low and deep, a sound that made the very ground tremble. The merchants dared not breathe. Some covered their faces, certain they would see blood spill in the next moment. But the traveler did not reach for a weapon. He did not run. Slowly, with careful movements, he reached into his pack. His hands did not shake, though the weight of a dozen terrified eyes watched him. From the pack, he pulled out a small ration, food meant for long journeys between stars. He opened it, and instead of lifting it to his own mouth, he knelt down on the damp ground. He placed the food before him, then tore off a piece and held it out with an open hand. The beast froze, its breath steaming in the cold air. Its eyes glowed brighter, fixed on the small human who dared to stay. The merchants whispered louder, unable to believe what they saw. Some muttered that the human had gone mad. Others thought he was only moments away from death. The predator took one step forward, then another. Its body moved like water, smooth and without sound. The air grew heavier with every step it took. The human stayed where he was, his hand still open, offering the food. He did not speak, for words meant nothing to such a creature. He simply waited, calm, steady, showing no fear. The beast stopped in front of him. Its head lowered until its glowing eyes were level with his face. Its breath came in slow, deep waves that washed over him like heat. The merchants could barely watch. This was the moment when every story said the same thing would happen. The beast would strike, and another life would be ended. But instead, the predator did something that no one expected. It leaned closer, its nose brushing against the human's hand. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, with a sudden motion, the predator took the food gently from his palm. Its teeth, sharp as blades, never touched his skin. It chewed once, twice, and swallowed. The merchants gasped. Some stumbled backward in shock. This was not possible. No living being had ever fed the beast and lived to tell of it. The predator stared at the human again, its green eyes burning brighter. Then it lowered its massive body to the ground, sitting in front of him like a guardian. The human looked into those glowing eyes and felt something he could not explain. There was danger in them, yes, but also curiosity, even a strange form of respect. Slowly, he placed the rest of the food on the ground. The predator bent down and ate, never breaking its gaze from him. The forest was silent now. Even the wind seemed to stop. The merchants who had hidden in fear peeked out from behind their stalls, their faces pale and full of disbelief. They whispered to each other, trying to understand what they were seeing. The galaxy's most feared predator had chosen not to kill. Instead, it had taken food from the hands of a fragile human. The human did not know why the creature spared him. Perhaps it was hunger, perhaps chance. Or perhaps it was something more. The predator finished eating and then stood again. Instead of vanishing back into the forest, it stayed by his side. Wherever he moved, the beast moved with him. The merchant stepped back, making space, as the human and the predator walked together through the mist. No one dared stop him. No one dared speak against him. For in that moment, it was clear, the deadliest beast in the galaxy had made its choice. And it had chosen him. The whispers began before he had even left the market. They would spread from world to world, station to station, faster than light could travel. Some would say the human had tamed the monster. Others would say he had cursed himself with its bond. But all would remember this day, the day when a fragile traveler fed the galaxy's deadliest beast and lived. That was the start of something no one could have predicted. It was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. The human traveler moved slowly through the fog, his boots pressing against the damp ground. Every step he took, the great predator followed. Its movements were silent, graceful, and yet filled with a weight of power that made even the trees seem smaller. The merchants who had been watching kept their distance, whispering in shock. Some of them hurried back to their ships, too afraid to remain any longer on a world where such a thing had just happened. Others stayed, their eyes wide, hoping to witness more of what had begun. The predator's eyes never left the human. The green glow in them was steady, not wild, not filled with rage. Instead, there was something strange, something impossible. It looked at him as though studying, as though deciding what he was. The human could feel the weight of that gaze on his back, like the stare of an entire world. He knew this was no ordinary moment. He knew that no creature in the galaxy had ever been this close to such a beast and survived. When he stopped, the predator stopped. When he knelt to tie the strap of his pack, the predator lowered its body, watching. There was no sound but the soft drip of water falling from leaves above and the faint echo of merchants still whispering in the distance. Some of them wanted him to run, to climb into a ship and leave before the beast changed its mind. Others thought that if they followed, they might discover the secret of survival. But the human did not run. He stayed calm, as if he understood that fear would only shatter the thin line of trust forming between them. The predator leaned closer, sniffing at his shoulder, its breath hot against his skin. He did not flinch. He only turned his head slightly, enough to show he knew it was there, enough to show he was not afraid. Then the predator did something that made every witness draw in a sharp breath. It stepped forward and brushed its massive head against his side, the way a smaller creature might show recognition. The human stood still, his hands at his side, while the beast rested its glowing eyes on him. It was not the look of an enemy now. It was something different, something more dangerous to the galaxy than claws or fangs. It was a choice. The predator had chosen him. The whispers spread even faster now. The merchants could not believe what they were seeing. Some of them began to argue among themselves. A few said the human carried hidden weapons, or strange drugs, tricks that bent the beast's mind. Others said it was something greater, something older, a bond written in the blood of stars. But none of them could deny the truth they saw before their eyes. The deadliest predator alive was no longer wild. It was no longer alone. It had decided to stay at the side of a fragile human traveler. The human looked back at it, his heart steady. He felt no triumph, no pride, only the weight of what had just begun. He knew the galaxy would not let this pass quietly. He knew that this bond would bring both wonder and fear, and that both could turn to danger. But still, he did not step away. The predator lowered itself onto the ground beside him, like a shadow at his feet. When he moved again, it rose and followed without question. Wherever he walked, the beast remained at his side. The merchants stepped back, clearing a path, unable to stop their shaking hands. They knew this was no accident. They knew this was history unfolding before them. And far beyond that misty world, in the halls of councils and the corners of hidden networks, word would soon travel like fire. A predator feared across the galaxy had chosen a human. No one would understand why. No one would know what it meant. But all of them would feel the same chill when they heard it. The galaxy's most feared predator had made its choice. And its choice was him. Whispers carried faster than ships. News of the strange bond left the misty world almost as soon as it happened. Merchants who had witnessed the moment spread the story in trembling voices over every channel they could reach. Some claimed they had seen a miracle. Others swore it was a curse. But every version carried the same core truth: the deadliest predator in the galaxy had not killed a human. It had chosen him. On distant stations, traders repeated the story across crowded bars. Soldiers told it around mess tables, lowering their voices as if the predator might hear them from light years away. Scientists argued about it in long halls filled with data screens. Some demanded proof, while others were already searching for explanations. The words echoed everywhere: a fragile human had fed the beast, and the beast had stayed. The human himself did not chase the fame or the spreading tales. He walked quietly through the market, the predator always at his side. It towered over him, every step silent, every movement perfect in its control. The merchants moved away as he passed, not daring to block his path. Some bowed their heads, while others looked away, unable to face the sight. The predator ignored them all. Its attention never left the one it had chosen. Not all who heard the whispers were afraid. Some were drawn by greed. Across the galaxy, powerful warlords leaned forward when their spies reported the story. If the predator could be controlled through the human, then it was not only a terror, it was a weapon. Armies had failed to capture the beast in the past. Hunters had lost their lives trying. But now, perhaps, they could take the human and gain what no empire had ever held. Others, though, saw danger not in power but in balance. The Galactic Council received the reports within days. In their towering chamber of light, leaders of dozens of species gathered to listen. The voice of the recorders trembled as they described what had happened. The counselors argued. Some believed this bond was a threat to peace itself. A human with the loyalty of the beast could tip the scales of power. Others believed it might be a gift, a chance to learn more about a creature that had been a shadow on their worlds for centuries. Meanwhile, the human traveler felt the weight of eyes on him wherever he went. He could sense it in the silence of the market, in the empty streets, in the way strangers stopped talking the moment he came near. He had not asked for this. He had not planned it. But now the predator walked beside him as if it had always belonged there. At night, he made a fire outside the small camp he had built. The predator lay nearby, its glowing eyes open and watchful. It did not sleep as humans did. It only rested, its ears twitching at every sound, its chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. When the wind carried distant noises, the beast would raise its head, growl once, and the forest would fall silent again. The human wondered if this creature had chosen him for more than food. He wondered if there was a reason beyond chance. Across the stars, the story grew. Some said the human had unlocked an ancient secret. Some claimed he carried forgotten bloodlines that made him different. Some even whispered that the predator was no beast at all, but a guardian disguised in the form of a monster. Every tale twisted the truth, but all pointed back to him. The more the whispers spread, the more danger gathered. Ships left hidden ports, carrying hunters who wanted proof. Mercenaries sharpened their blades, imagining the reward for delivering the human to those who sought him. The human did not yet know it, but his quiet act of kindness had lit a fire across the galaxy. And fires, once started, spread far and wide. For now, he simply walked with the predator at his side, each step heavy with meaning. The forest seemed smaller with the beast near, as if even nature itself bent around its presence. When he stopped to rest, the predator lay down beside him. When he moved, it rose again, silent, patient, never straying from him. The bond had already begun to shape itself into something unbreakable. But beyond the trees, in places he could not yet see, fleets were moving, plans were forming, and voices were rising. The galaxy had heard the whispers, and it would not stay quiet for long. The forest air was heavy that evening. Mist curled between the giant trees, hiding shadows that shifted with every breath of wind. The human traveler walked carefully, his senses sharper now that he was never alone. The predator moved beside him, a silent guardian, its glowing green eyes cutting through the fog like two lanterns. Every step it took was measured, yet the ground seemed to shake under its weight. The merchants who had once followed from a distance were gone now. They had fled, too afraid to remain near the creature for long. But not everyone had left. Far behind the human, hidden among the trees, a different group had arrived. They were mercenaries, drawn by the whispers that had spread across the stars. Their armor was dark, their weapons sharper than the fangs of any beast. They had heard the stories and believed them. If the predator obeyed the human, then the human was the key to controlling it. And if they could capture him, they would own the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. The mercenaries moved in silence, their eyes fixed on the human ahead. They thought he would be easy prey. One fragile man, unaware of their presence. They did not care about the predator. They carried devices built to shock and restrain even the largest animals. They were confident, greedy, blind to the danger waiting for them. The human did not know how close they were, but the predator did. Its ears twitched. Its head lifted slightly, and a low growl rumbled from deep inside its chest. The sound was quiet, almost gentle, but it made the air itself vibrate. The human stopped, turning to look at the beast. Its glowing eyes were no longer calm. They were sharp now, fixed on the trees behind them. He followed its gaze, but at first saw nothing. Only the fog, only the shadows. Then a branch shifted. A foot pressed into the soil. The mercenaries had drawn too close. The human's heart tightened, but he did not run. He understood that the predator was already prepared. The first attack came fast. A flash of light cut through the fog as one of the mercenaries fired a net that shimmered with electric current. It shot toward the human, meant to bind him before he could react. But before it could touch him, the predator moved. It leapt forward, faster than the human's eyes could follow. The net hit empty air as the predator's claws struck the ground. The sound was like thunder breaking the silence of the forest. The mercenaries froze. They had expected the beast to react, but not with such speed, not with such fury. The predator's body arched, its fur glowing faintly in the mist, its teeth bared. The green light of its eyes burned brighter, and for the first time, the hunters felt fear pressing into their armor. One of them shouted an order, and more weapons fired. Bolts of energy, darts tipped with poison, beams meant to stun. They filled the air with light, but none of them touched the human. The predator moved like a storm. It leapt, twisted, struck with claws and fangs. Every attack meant for the human was torn apart before it could land. The forest exploded with sound. Trees shook as the predator slammed one mercenary into the ground. Another tried to aim from above, perched on a branch, but the beast's tail struck the trunk, and the branch snapped like glass. The hunter fell, and before he could rise, the predator's shadow swallowed him whole. The human could only watch. He had no weapon, no way to fight, but he did not need one. The predator fought for him. It was not wild rage. It was not random violence. Every strike, every movement was deliberate. It defended him with precision, as if it had always been its purpose. The mercenaries began to break. Their weapons failed, their courage shattered. One of them cried out to retreat. Another dropped his weapon and fled into the fog, vanishing into the darkness. The predator did not chase the ones who ran. It only struck down those who stayed, those who dared to threaten the human. When the last of them fell silent, the forest grew still again. The only sound left was the predator's breathing, heavy but steady, as it stood in front of the human. Its body was marked with burns where energy bolts had struck, but it did not falter. Its eyes glowed brighter than ever, filled not with fury now but with certainty. The human stepped closer. He reached out a hand, not touching, only showing he was there. The predator lowered its head, as if to acknowledge him. It had fought not for itself, not for survival, but for him. In the distance, the surviving mercenaries stumbled through the fog, their voices shaking with fear. They had not captured a prize. They had barely escaped with their lives. And as they fled, they carried with them a story that would spread even faster than before. The whispers would change now. No longer would they say only that a human had fed the predator. Now they would say the predator had fought for him, had chosen him so completely that it destroyed all who dared to come near. The galaxy would not stay quiet after this. The council would not ignore it. The hunters, the warlords, the rulers of worlds, they would all hear what had happened in the misty forest. And every one of them would want to know the same thing. Why had the deadliest predator alive chosen a fragile human? Far away from the misty forest, across the great networks of light and silence, the news of the battle reached the ears of those who ruled. Whispers of merchants and the broken voices of fleeing mercenaries had already become louder than truth. Some said the Predator had slaughtered an entire army for the sake of one human. Others said the human himself had commanded it with only his voice. Some even claimed he had not moved at all, that the Predator had acted simply because he existed. No matter which version reached the stars, the story carried the same weight. The galaxy's most feared beast was no longer wild. It was bonded. And it had chosen a human. In the towering halls of the Galactic Council, arguments began before the human even knew he was summoned. The chamber was carved from crystal and light, built to hold voices that carried across worlds. Dozens of leaders gathered in circles, their faces projected in shimmering blue, some present in body, others in image. Their words clashed like fire and storm. "This bond cannot be allowed," one counselor thundered, his scales rattling as he raised a clawed hand. "The beast is a threat to all civilizations. With a single command, it could destroy fleets. If it serves a human, then humanity controls it. That is too much power." Another leader, cloaked in flowing silver, leaned forward. "And yet," she whispered, "it did not serve him before. It was free. No prison held it. No chain bound it. If the Predator has chosen, then it has chosen by its own will. Should we not learn why?" The debate burned for hours. Some called the human a danger. Others called him a miracle. Some demanded his capture, to separate him from the Predator before war began. Others begged for patience, to understand before fear consumed them all. At last, the Council sent its messengers. Ships of silver and gold cut through the stars, faster than most eyes could follow. They carried the words of the rulers, wrapped in orders sharp as blades. The human was to come before them. He was to stand in the chamber of light and answer for the bond that had shaken the galaxy. On the misty world, the human sat by his small fire once more, the Predator resting at his side. He heard the deep hum of approaching engines long before the messengers arrived. The Predator lifted its head, ears twitching, eyes glowing faintly in the dim. It growled once, low, a sound of warning that rolled across the forest floor like thunder under the earth. The ships landed, their polished hulls shining even through the fog. From them stepped figures in robes of authority, carrying no weapons but the weight of law. They stood at a distance, cautious, their eyes locked on the Predator before daring to speak. "You have been called," one of them said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "The Council demands your presence. You must come to answer for what has happened." The human looked at the Predator, then back at the messengers. He could feel the tension in the air. They feared the beast, yet they dared not show it. He rose to his feet, calm as always, and gave a small nod. He knew this moment could not be avoided. But when he stepped forward, the Predator stepped with him. Its body moved close, its eyes fixed on the messengers, unblinking. The officials froze, their breath caught in their throats. None of them had been this close before. None of them had seen the beast's glowing eyes from only a few paces away. "You must leave it here," one messenger whispered. "The Council will not allow its presence." The Predator growled again, louder this time, the sound cutting through the fog like a blade. The trees trembled, and even the air seemed to bend. The human placed his hand on its side, steady, and it lowered its head slightly but did not move away. He spoke no words, but his calmness was enough. The messengers understood the truth. Where he went, the Predator would follow. And so, when the ships lifted into the sky, the Council's messengers watched with pale faces as the beast walked up the ramp beside the human, its paws silent on the metal floor. The engines roared, carrying them into the stars. In the chamber of the Council, silence fell when the doors opened. The human entered, a fragile figure in simple clothes, and beside him came the Predator, glowing eyes burning bright under the crystal lights. Every leader, every soldier, every scribe froze as the beast's shadow spread across the floor. The arguments began again, louder, sharper than ever. Some demanded the human's death, believing it was the only way to end the bond. Others warned that killing him would unleash the Predator's wrath upon the galaxy. The human stood calm as voices clashed, while the Predator sat at his side like a silent mountain, watching with eyes that promised violence to anyone who came too close. At last, the Council's highest voice rose above the storm. "You are dangerous," the leader said, his voice echoing across the chamber. Whether by choice or curse, the predator has bound itself to you. If you remain as you are, war will come. You must give us reason to let you live. Speak, human. Tell us why the galaxy should not fear you. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. Every breath held. Even the predator's glowing gaze shifted to his face, waiting. The human knew this was not just a question. It was a warning. The galaxy would not let this bond continue without answer. He took a slow breath, his voice steady as he prepared to speak, while the weight of stars pressed down upon him. The chamber of the council held its silence as the human stood beneath the towering crystal arches. Light spilled down from the high ceiling, bending and breaking into colors that shimmered across the polished floor. Every councillor waited, their eyes sharp, their voices quiet for the first time since the debate had begun. The predator sat beside the human like a living shadow, its glowing green eyes steady, its massive frame still. It did not move, but its presence was louder than thunder. No one forgot what it could do. The human spoke softly, his words simple, his voice calm. "I did not seek this," he said. "I gave food because I saw hunger. Nothing more." His honesty unsettled many. The councillors expected excuses or clever lies. Instead, they heard something worse, truth spoken without fear. Some muttered in disbelief. Others leaned forward, trying to read more in his face. But before any could speak again, one of the oldest councillors, a tall being wrapped in golden cloth, raised a hand. "There are records," he said. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "Old stories. Not myths, histories. They speak of the beast, long before our fleets, long before our councils. Always it was feared. Always it walked alone. But once, only once, it was said to have chosen." The chamber stirred. The human frowned, listening. The predator turned its glowing eyes toward the councillor, unblinking, as if it too understood. The golden-clothed elder continued. "It was 1,000 years ago, perhaps more. In the ruins of a forgotten world, carved into stone, are words that say, 'The shadow does not serve, the shadow does not bend. But when the time is right, it will choose. And that choice will shape the stars.'" Murmurs filled the air. Some scoffed. Others whispered fearfully. Legends were not law, yet the weight of such words was heavy in a chamber already filled with tension. The human felt the eyes of the predator on him again. He could not deny what had happened. The beast had chosen. It could have killed him, but it had not. It could have left him, but it had stayed. He remembered the first growl, the first touch of its nose against his hand. He remembered the battle with the mercenaries, how it had fought not for itself but for him. The council erupted in argument. Some shouted that the legend meant nothing, that the beast was only an animal, dangerous and unpredictable. Others claimed the prophecy was real, that the human survival was proof. Fear and hope clashed in equal measure, filling the chamber with voices that rang like weapons. Through it all, the predator remained silent. Yet, silence from such a creature was its own language. Its stillness was more powerful than words. It did not growl, did not threaten. It only sat close to the human, as though declaring in its calm that no matter what the council decided, its choice would not change. The elder raised his hand again, silencing the chamber. "We stand at a moment we cannot ignore. Either we destroy what we fear, or we face the truth that destiny may have moved before us. If the beast has chosen, then perhaps it is not the human we must fear, but the meaning of its choice." The words cut deep. For the first time, some councillors did not look at the human but at the predator itself. What had it seen in him? Why had it chosen one so fragile, one so ordinary? Did it sense strength hidden beneath weakness, or was it shaping him into something more? The human had no answers. He only stood in the silence, his calmness steady. But deep inside, he felt the shift. He understood now that this was not only survival. This was not only chance. The bond between him and the predator carried weight older than empires. The galaxy's fear was not only of death, but of the unknown. When the session ended, the council gave no verdict. They had no courage to order his death, no wisdom to grant him freedom. They left with questions heavier than before. The messengers escorted the human from the chamber, their eyes darting constantly to the predator at his side. That night, when he sat beneath the stars, he looked at the predator resting beside him. The green glow of its eyes shimmered faintly in the dark. He whispered softly, though he knew it did not need words to understand. "Why me?" The beast did not answer. But it stayed. And in that silence, the human knew that the truth was still hidden, waiting to be uncovered. Whatever it was, it would not be small. It would shake the galaxy. The human awoke to the sound of distant thunder, though the sky above was clear. He sat up, his eyes scanning the horizon. The predator was already alert, its massive head raised, its green eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. The sound was not thunder. It was engines, ships approaching fast. He stood, pulling his pack close, but the predator stepped forward first, its body lowering into a stance of warning. Shadows flickered in the distance as lights cut through the darkness. Dozens of small craft descended, their engines roaring as they landed across the barren plain. Soldiers poured out, armored and armed, their weapons raised. The leader of the force stepped forward, his voice loud, cold, and practiced. "By order of the Outer Systems Command, the human and the beast are to be taken into custody. Stand down, and you will be spared." The human said nothing. He could feel the predator's tension beside him, like a storm ready to break. The soldiers spread into formation, careful to keep their distance. Their eyes betrayed them, showing fear even behind metal helmets. They knew what they were facing. The leader raised his weapon. "Last chance." The predator growled, a deep, low rumble that shook the ground. Soldiers flinched, some taking a step back. The human placed a hand on the beast's side. For a moment, it glanced down at him, and the growl softened, though the danger in its stance remained. The human raised his voice, calm but firm. "We are not enemies. Leave us." The soldiers did not listen. Blades of light cut through the air as weapons charged. The first shot struck the ground near his feet, burning the soil. The predator reacted in an instant, moving with impossible speed. Its body became a blur of shadow and power. Weapons fired, explosions cracked, but the beast moved through them like wind through grass. The human stood frozen, watching as chaos erupted around him. The predator's claws tore weapons apart, its tail sent soldiers flying. Its roar filled the night, drowning the sound of engines, drowning the courage of trained fighters. Yet, even in its fury, the beast circled close to him, never letting the battle touch the human. When the smoke cleared, silence returned. The soldiers who survived scrambled back to their ships, engines screaming as they lifted into the sky. The leader lay on the ground, his weapon broken, his pride shattered. He stared at the human, eyes wide with fear. It protects you." The human did not answer. He simply turned and began to walk away, the predator following silently at his side. The ground was scarred, the air heavy with the smell of burned metal. Behind them, the ships vanished into the sky. That night, as they rested in the shelter of a canyon, the human stared into the fire he had built. He could still hear the echo of the predator's roar in his head. The galaxy would not stop. Armies would come, mercenaries would try, councils would debate, legends would spread. Every step he took now was a challenge to powers far greater than him. The predator lay close, silent and calm, its green eyes reflecting the fire. The human spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "They will never stop hunting us." The predator blinked slowly, then lowered its head onto the ground beside him. Its silence was an answer of its own. Whatever came, it would face it. And it had chosen to face it with him. Above them, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, news of what had happened tonight was already spreading. Armies would regroup. Councils would argue louder. And whispers would turn into fear, then into war. But beneath the endless sky, in the quiet of the canyon, there was only a man and the galaxy's most feared predator. And for the first time, the human began to understand that their bond was not just survival. It was a message, one the galaxy was not yet ready to hear. The days passed in uneasy silence. Wherever the human walked, the predator followed, its massive shadow stretching across the land like a silent warning. Word had spread faster than he imagined. Entire systems whispered his name, though few knew his face. To some, he was a savior. To others, a threat greater than war itself. But in every corner of the galaxy, one truth grew louder: he was the one the beast had chosen. They reached the edge of an abandoned city, its towers broken, its streets covered in dust. The human moved carefully, his eyes scanning the ruins. He could feel it, something waited here. The predator was restless too, its muscles tense, its glowing green eyes flicking between the shadows. A voice echoed across the empty streets, calm yet heavy. So it is true. The predator walks with a human. Figures stepped from the ruins, cloaked in dark armor, their insignia old and forgotten by most of the galaxy. They were not soldiers of the Council, not mercenaries, but something older, keepers of secrets buried in time. Their leader pulled back his hood, revealing a scarred face and eyes that burned with knowledge. "You do not understand what you carry," he said, his gaze fixed not on the predator but on the human. "The beast is not a monster. It is a guardian. And if it has chosen you, then the galaxy will burn or be remade in your shadow." The human's breath caught in his chest. Guardian. Not predator. Not destroyer. The word lingered in his mind, reshaping everything he thought he knew. The cloaked leader stepped closer. The predator growled, low and dangerous, but the man raised his hands in peace. Long ago, the beast chose another. A warrior who sought power. The galaxy fell into chaos, and millions died. The bond is not random, it is destiny. And destiny is dangerous. The human felt the predator's presence beside him, steady and unyielding. It looked at him, as though waiting for his choice. He realized then that this was never about survival, never about chance. It was about what he would do with the bond, about whether he would guide the beast, or be consumed by what it meant. The leader's voice lowered. "If you fail, the stars will drown in war. But if you succeed, you may lead the galaxy into an age it has never seen." The ruins around them seemed to tremble with the weight of his words. The human looked up at the sky, endless and cold. Armies were hunting them. Councils feared them. Legends surrounded them. But the truth was greater than all of it. The beast was not his shield. It was his mirror, a reflection of what he would become. He placed his hand on its side, feeling the steady pulse of life beneath its shadowed skin. For the first time, he spoke not to the galaxy, not to the whispers, but to the predator itself. "Then we walk together. Whatever comes, we face it." The predator lowered its head, its glowing eyes locking onto his with a silent promise. In that moment, the bond was sealed, not of hunger, not of chance, but of choice. Far beyond the ruins, fleets were gathering, weapons forged, armies prepared. Fear was growing into war. But as the human and the guardian walked into the dark, side by side, something stronger than fear was born. Not a legend. Not a prophecy. A beginning. And the galaxy would never be the same again.